Hi, this is the module Elements, Real-Time Data within DataMiner Fundamentals. So it's the first module where we take a closer look at elements and just to point out where we are. So we started off with the DataMiner introduction, a general introduction on DataMiner. We got connected to the DataMiner system, talked a little bit about the surveyor, how to navigate around. So we know how to open up the element cards. Let's take a closer look at the elements itself. So the first module will be the elements, the real-time data within elements. We're going to take a closer look also to the performance data within elements, and then some general element enhancements, visuals, and things like that. Then we're going to continue with some other modules like alarms, etc. Okay, so this is elements, real-time data, diving into those element cards on the specific topic of the data display, you could say. So data display, what is it? What can we find there? On those data display pages, we will find parameters, and those parameters will have some parameter features. Some general features like element locking, searching, and multiple set will also cover, and we'll wrap it up with two side notes, you could say, on documents and notes. All right, so first things first, data display, and what can we find there? So you see a couple of examples here. So we do find on that data display all the data or parameters coming back from the specific data source we're currently communicating with. So it will depend on the type of connector or which connector we have here, which kind of data we have. So the data source will expose certain parameters, like on the left-hand side, we see that we have some total processor load, so we have some memory parameters. So this is actually a Microsoft server. So it's the Microsoft platform driver, and it exposes certain parameters here on our data display and certain pages actually to organize that data back in here. If we take a look on the right-hand side, we do see some frequencies, LMB supply. So this is a satellite receiver, so it is different data coming back from that specific data source. So each element has a connector behind the scenes which will define what we will retrieve. So if it's WMI talking to a Microsoft server, if it's a proprietary protocol to a satellite receiver, if it's a web API to some kind of cloud encoding function, if it's a complete system we're interrogating, or a database, or if it's SNMP or a standardized protocol or open config, it doesn't really matter which kind of protocol is happening behind the scenes. It always comes back to us in the UI in these kind of element cards with a familiar look and feel on any kind of device from any kind of vendor, independent of which protocol is being used. So as an operator, when using the system, it is very familiar to work with any kind of element of any kind of vendor or source of information. So we do also see some controls here. So also the control is of course available on the data display. So let's take a look at that data display itself, or actually first maybe the element card layout. So the first thing to point out maybe here is that header bar. And let me show you in our DataMiner cube. I do have my DataMiner cube still open here. Still connected to the training system, but you could also connect to the Zine system. So I will be using some of the trainer material, which is located here, but you will also typically find the elements back in the regular operations view, which you can find on a Zine system or a demo system. So for instance, the IRT that I have over here, to show a little bit about parameters, you can also find it in Rome, IRT01. Just to show you the breadcrumbs here that we have in that header bar, that is quite convenient because I can immediately see the element name of this data source here, or the element. It's currently in a good green normal state, and it's located in Rome, and actually the whole Rome site is in a good shape, but I see that there are problems elsewhere in Europe, and I can click on Europe to go to Europe, so I can just click on there, but I can also click on the arrows and see the different sites in there, so I can go back to Rome to a certain element there, but I can also double click on one of the views like Rome to immediately we go to Rome and then to further drill down into the IRD01, for instance. So you can really use that as a navigation next to your surveyor tree structure, which we already discovered in the previous module. So that's also quite convenient to keep an eye on the full breadcrumb that is available there. Now, the second thing that I want to mention here is that sidebar. So within the element, we have lots of information available to show you. The first section is something we will discover in the enhancements, the visuals. So that's coming up later on. So we'll not talk about this now. So this is more the graphical presentation of, in this case, a Microsoft server we have here. And then we have the data pages where we are currently, will take a closer look at in this video. So here we will find different pages. With each time you can select them, see then all the parameters which is available here on the content section. So the content section is showing you all the parameters which are located on that page. So depending on the type of device or the connector, you will see other pages, and you will see more or less pages. So and each page will contain more or less parameters and different types of parameters. We'll take a closer look at the possibilities in types of parameters. Now, a small side note, at the bottom of your card, you will have the possibility to show actually a footer, and there is a possibility that certain information is being shown there. For instance, if your element is being locked, we'll play around with that in just a minute or later on in this session. And for instance, if it's in timeout or things like that. So there is a banner which is possibly showing up there, but also the footer. And I want to show you maybe in an example here, because if I go to one of those pages, I don't see that footer here. While that is by default, the footer is not shown. If you want to show that, you can go to the settings, and in the card section, you will find underneath the view, APM element card, and etc. You will find a show footer there. You can also search. If you want to search for footer, you will also easily find the show footer card there. If you apply that, oh, no, it's not a double click I wanted to do. I wanted to move it a little bit down. So if I apply that, I can see the number of measurements that are happening per second. So that's the polling frequency, which is indicated there. So I can see it's actively polling. I can also see an upcoming 24-hour availability and the last 24-hour alarm state, which is immediately shown. I'll show you the alarm state later on as well. So that's immediately shown in there. But to win a little bit more screen real estate, you can also remove it again. So then you can have, if you have longer pages, you will have more screen real estate. So it's a user setting. You can configure it as you wish. All right. So now the data display pages itself before going into the parameters. So you will see that those pages immediately have an alarm color coding, like on the screenshot here. You will see that the element itself is in critical states. Therefore, everything above it will also be critical, of course, because we have that bubble up in our tree structure or in our surveyor. The header bar also has a couple of pixels there at the top, a small line, which is also indicating the most severe alarm state. But then if you open up that element, it's convenient to quickly locate where that problem resides. So if I open that up, I will immediately see if I go to the pages. You can also open up the drop down there at the top. You can see that there are actually more than one page in a critical state. There is a problem with the audio page, and there is also a problem here on the general device information page. Well, actually, you can see something that the device information, auxiliary data, and MP setup are a little bit indented. That's because they are subpages from the general page. And you can also actually see those pages here with the buttons. So the MP, the auxiliary, and the device info. So there are two ways of opening up those kind of pop-up pages, as we call them. We call them pop-up pages because you can click on the button and then they open up in a pop-up. If you can also click on there, the device info, and then I can show it maybe in a quick demo. So if I go to the general, you can open that up and you can go to the device info there. Or if I go back to the general, I can also click on device info there, and then the same page opens up in a pop-up. So if you click on the button, it opens in a pop-up. If you click in the tree structure here, it opens embedded. It's the same page, it's just differently visualized. So that's why we call it a pop-up page. And a small note, you see some other pages here. Well, some other buttons, I wanted to say. You see some other buttons here, but those are action buttons. Load EEPROM, save to EEPROM, reboot of a device. If I click on this button, it won't show a pop-up page, but it will do an actual reboot of the device. Be aware, there is of course a confirmation there. I'm not going to do it now. So if you see the 3 dots at the end, then it means something is following, and it basically means that the pop-up is following with more information there. So that's how you can see those are pop-up pages and those are action buttons in here. So we have the pop-up pages, we have, or sub-pages you could also call them, and we have the alarm color coding. On this one, we can actually see that the device info has an alarm, so the general has an alarm. It's actually more specifically on device info. Also the button has the color-coded dot on there, and it's apparently this parameter onto that pop-up pages which is being monitored. If I go back to one of my the elements here, I can see that my element is in a major state, and more specifically it is on the audio page that I do have a problem. The other pages, the gray is if nothing is monitored on there, like video for instance, there is none of the parameters are being monitored, so there is no possible alarm there. So you can see that some of the pages don't have any alarming. Demodulator has alarming, but it's green. The audio output level there is in alarm. So I can quickly locate where my problems are residing. Of course, I can also go to the alarms, but we'll talk about the alarms later on. There's one more page which is not being mentioned here. There is a possibility that one of those pages is actually a embedded web page. It means if you click on there, it will open up a embedded web browser, and it will navigate to the actual element, to the actual data source, to the IP address of the data source, and show an embedded web interface of that device or that system, which also potentially has a web interface. So instead of just looking at the data that we retrieved inside DataMiner, we can also show you immediately, give you access here to that specific embedded web interface with maybe some special controls on there that are easily available here. So instead of looking up the IP address of the device here or the system and then trying to open up a web browser, navigating to that specific URL, you immediately have it conveniently available here. You click on the embedded web page, it opens up the web page embedded here to the correct URL. But of course, you do need access from your computer to that actual element or that actual system, to that IP address. So that is, of course, required to have that. Otherwise, your web browser will just say page cannot be displayed or something like that. Okay, so that's actually another option that is possible, an embedded web page. Okay, so main pages, sub-pages, the color coding, that's what we need to remember here from those pages to keep it a little bit organized. So let's take a look at the parameters onto those pages. So if I go to one specific page, I will see some different possibilities, some different flavors. So we have a couple of them highlighted here. Let me go through them in the web interface that we have here on our system. So on the audio page, we actually have here on that Philips IRD quite a variety of different possibilities. So here we have the audio output level, which is a certain analog value, as we call it, an analog parameter with a minimum and a maximum. And this one has also the possibility to change it. So I can, for instance, go to 15 and I can change that. It asks for a confirmation. Yes, you can change that. And the device accepted. And now I went into a critical state and I can go back, for instance, to a green state 6. Okay. So I can change it here with the slider, with the spin buttons, and I can see immediately the result on top of that. On the right hand side you have the same thing, but here I want to show you if you right click on the LED bar, you can actually choose between the LED bar and an oscilloscope. If you have, for instance, something like a total processor load or something which is continuously changing, and you see a processor load going up and down, then it might be convenient to see it more in like a short time span to see that, for instance, what is the average value a little bit, because it's continuously going up and down. So then it's a little bit interesting to see it over a longer period of time. You can change in the settings also if it's showing you a last minute or last 2 minutes, etc. Note if I change the parameter, I can move the slider. Now it's at -39, but if I use the spin buttons, it will immediately go to that 39, one more or one less. So let's go to -42. Okay. So I don't have anything in there anymore, but if I click one down, it will go from -42 with a step size to -45. And one up again is, so the previous value is immediately being taken into account. So it is making that sure that it's easy to change current value with a couple of knots on that spin control there. All right. We do have here the channel name, that's a name, so BBC1, so you can type something in there, BBC2 for instance. This is just demo device, so simulated even. So I can easily change this and this will also accept it. Although it's simulated, there's no real system behind this. It does accept it in a simulated mode. Nice to play around with that. So just a name. We do have here also, well, that's actually a discrete parameter as we call it, but let's maybe jump to the bottom one, which is also a discrete one, but this one has like the mono output left, right, left plus right, or off. So it has like possible values, so you can choose between left or right, or left or right, and right, or off. So those are possible values, so that's a discrete parameter. The audio mode is also a discrete parameter, but since it only has two possibilities between a test tone and an MPEG-1 layer 2, you just have a spin button. Typically, this is often being used with like an on-off parameter, or most frequently just with an on-off parameter. So you see on and you can click on it and it's off. It's like toggling between two values. It's like a slider thing, toggling on or off. So that's basically toggling between two discrete values. It's still discrete, but only two possible values. The audio attenuation here, this one is currently on not initialized. Not initialized means that DataMiner has no clue what this parameter would be because it never received a value for it. Nobody told it, the device didn't tell us what it is, the user didn't tell it what it had to be configured to, so it says not initialized. Now, this could mean typically that, for instance, the device maybe doesn't support it at this stage. Maybe it's a module that is not activated, so the license is not activated, it doesn't return values for these parameters, so it's currently not initialized. Or maybe if I would activate something else, like put it on test tone, then this one could maybe suddenly kick in. So it depends a little bit on the situation by situation, but in a general sense, DataMiner does know because it didn't retrieve any values. It is also possible maybe that they did a firmware upgrade of that specific element or a software upgrade, and maybe it's no longer supported or the commands did change. So you can also reach out to us to make sure that maybe there's nothing updated that needs to be updated in the driver. In this case, well, it's simulated. We can actually just put a value in there and then it will effectively accept this value. Now, this is, you could say, an analog because you can just specify a number there. Indeed, I can specify a number in there and I can specify a new number in there. But it's actually a special case because we have an exceptional value here, not used. So this is what we call a hybrid parameter because we have an analog which just has a value with a minimum and a maximum, like the audio output level. And we have like a drop down with possible values. Well, this one actually has a little bit of combination. It has a possible number there, and it also has a not used. And if I go for not used, it's an exceptional discrete value on there, you could say. If I go for the not used, well, let me go for the not used and let me discard the 3 dBm that I'm going to come back to this multiple set in just a second. If I go for not used, then you can see it's now not used. If I would go again, oh, no, I clicked on it. If I would go again for a certain value, not used, I disable this. Let me show that again. And I put it on a value again. So yes, so now it's again normally configured. And I can go back for that not used. I apply that not used. Yes, then it's in that exceptional state, not used. So that's an exceptional value on a regular analog value. We call this a hybrid parameter. Okay, I think that those are the most important ones that I mentioned there. The read and the write are associated nicely connected to each other, so you can have the frequency of your left frequency here. You can easily change that. I've shown that with the audio output level. The text parameter, the discrete parameters with the toggle button or the drop down, we've covered those things. So those are the regular parameters, but often we see, of course, tables of parameters. Very powerful because we have typically lots of information that needs to be shown from our data sources. So here you see an example of an interface table. And let me show you that in just an example here. So this is a Cisco switch. So you can just search for a Cisco switch in the system. You will typically find a couple of them. And you do have in the pages there the detailed interface info. And that shows me a table with all the interfaces of that Cisco element or Cisco switch with the description on there and all the different values you have, all the different columns, the bandwidth, utilization, the VLAN, what else do we have there? All kinds of things on if it's the duplex full or auto. Lots of things are available on there. And just a small tip, if you select one of those rows, you can also open up the blue side panel here, which then for this specific selected interface, it shows you all the columns, but underneath each other. So therefore you can more easily see sometimes if you go through that list, what the bitrate or the utilization is, for instance, on those different interfaces. Let me collapse that again. So, but we also want to highlight some of the editing. So you have the possibility to change, for instance, the custom description in here. So you can change the label of your interface. There is also the admin up or down. So you do have the possibility here to change the admin state of an interface up or down with those buttons. So you have inline buttons here. And you see the color coding as well in the background on those cells of that table. And we can see this one here. We can actually see that this one also is indicated in a critical. And yeah, you can see this is like bright green, and this is like lighter green. Well, actually the fact is that it uses a little bit of variance in the color coding. So if I would sort on that table and I sort the other way around, you will see that it actually, so yeah, this one is in critical, but this one is a little bit brighter green than the ones that are below it. So there's a, not sure if you see it very well, but there's a little bit of a variance so that you can see which one have a higher value or a lower value, just with the background intensity of that green, which is quite convenient. You can also see it actually in the gray. It's also being done over there. All right. So that's the intensity of the background color coding, which is giving a little touch to that. So you can play around with the columns, you can sort them, you can change the width, etc. That's standard behavior of columns. I'm gonna come back to the trend icon later on. So For now, that's the most important thing we need to remember. Yeah, one more thing that I wanted to mention as well. You do have the possibility to filter here. So if we are looking for a certain keywords, for instance, that we are looking for, we know that it goes something with park post. So we can see that there are different ones that include, so we have the main route to park post and we have the backup route. So we can easily just type in a keyword and search that within there. And also what is also convenient, these kind of tables, especially like this one, for instance, can be quite big. So you do have the possibility there to use that expand icon on the right hand side to really use all the screen real estate you have of your monitor to go and display as much as possible in terms of rows and columns, so that it's easy to maximize that table as well, to work a little bit more closely with that specific table. All right, so that's the most important things that I wanted to mention on the tables there for now. A special one is matrices. For a matrix, we do have a special visualization, which you can see here. We can play around with it on our demo system, but in essence, we have a number of inputs and we have a number of outputs on this matrix or router. And the inputs are connected to a certain output with those cross points. So you can easily change those cross points there. So let me open up the matrix in our demo system here. So we have a couple of inputs here and a couple of outputs. Notice is a very easy one, which only has 8 inputs and outputs, but it could also be that they have lots of outputs, and then potentially you could need to use a search, for instance, because you can also put labels on there. So you can change the name instead of having the labels 1, 2, 3, 4, etc., or input 1, 2, 3, 4. You can also give them a name, which, for instance, BBC is coming in here, and then the output as well. That allows you then to easily search with this search on the inputs and the outputs. But what I wanted to say also is that this is only an 8x8, but if it's like a bigger one with hundreds of inputs and outputs, then typically we will also have paging. Paging is not being used on this one, but that allows you to collapse and to group certain inputs and outputs together. And for instance, have 10, 20, 30, 50 inputs being grouped together into one page. You give it a name, that page, and then you can just expand it and collapse it. If you collapse it, then it's only one row, so that you can easily have like a couple of pages, and then you open up a page and then you see the inputs of that page. That's why paging can come in handy with bigger matrices or routers. So you can just click on, let me connect input 5 with, for instance, the output 5. So I can just click on there. So I want, it will disconnect from input 4 to 5. Yes. Okay. Then it switches to there. So that's you can just click on any of the cross points. You can see that there is monitoring activated on the cross points. So some of them are green, some of them are in alarm. And there is also one special case here. This one is in a major alarm because nothing is connected to it. And as soon as if I will connect one of the outputs there, it will go into green state again. So this one says that actually there should always be something connected as an output to it. You can do the same thing for the output, that always an input should be connected to it. So as soon as nothing is connected to it anymore, then it becomes a alarm. And you can also see it here. Input 2 has no output. That's configured as an alarm in my system. So you can do full alarming on any of the cross points or any of the inputs or outputs. What else can you do? Well, you do have the possibility to lock a certain input or output. So in this case, for instance, I lock this output. Nobody can touch it anymore. So you can see it's like grayed out. Also, my cursor is indicating I cannot make any changes there. So I cannot click anymore there to make that cross point setting. Another one which is special is you can right click on there, lock unlock, I just said, and you can also use something as follow mode. If I enable a follow mode, I enabled it on both of them were selected. And then I can say this one is a slave of output 2. So you can see output 2 is actually going to mimic it to 8, and 8 is going to receive whatever 2 is following. So what it basically means is that you can see that output 8 is connected to output 3. That is because output 2 is connected to input 3. So it just follows the same thing. So if I will change output 2 to input 2, yes, the last one will follow. So if I go back to 3 here, so I'm changing this first output, the output 2 here, and whatever I change here, this one follows. So note that the simulation sometimes has a little bit of a delay. So I go back, and this one will go back as well. You can see it changes simultaneously. So this is typically being used if they have, for instance, some confidence monitoring with a monitor connected to output 3, and it shows whatever you send into your network is also being mimicked onto that output 8, which is connected to a monitor. So that's the follow mode, the lock mode that we have in here. What else should I show you? In the right click menu, you have the edits. That's where you can change those labels. So if you want to change the name of those inputs and give it more meaningful names, that's where you can do it. You can do that for the inputs, but you can also do that for the outputs. So all the inputs and all the outputs have their own tab page here to change those labels. You can also remove them if you don't use all of the inputs or all of the outputs. You can just remove them from the UI by using this enabled checkbox. And here you can also create pages. If you would have more inputs and outputs, that would be convenient. Note that the connector can immediately create pages out of the box as well. That's quite convenient with bigger matrices or routers. The allowed, so this input here is allowed to be connected with any output, but you can also say like, oh, well, actually the guy is only able to be connected to certain inputs or certain outputs. So that's also a possibility to restrict the combinations that you can make with from the perspective of the input or from perspective from the output. You can also make the allowed more or less restrictive. The layout is just if you want to flip the inputs and outputs around, and that the inputs are then on top and the outputs are then left. Okay, so those are a couple of more advanced editing options you have on a matrix. You can copy the pages or copy all pages or the expanded pages. That's the same if there are no pages. You can export this to a CSV so that you can easily import it again later on and for documentation purposes. And you can also save it in a proprietary format, but this one gives you the advantage to also save certain outputs or inputs only, certain outputs only. So this way you can save a certain configuration with a part of your matrix or router, give it a name and then save this. And then later on you can right click and load again a cross point from your backups that you restored or your backups that you created previously. So the backup restore allows you to easily do that. Okay, I think that's more than enough for the matrices. That's more a special case in case you have some matrices or routers in your system. Now, moving forward, there are some special there is some special page available a little bit more downwards with general parameters. Let me talk a little bit about that because we have always our pages here under the data section, which are very specific for which kind of element we're looking at. They depend on the connector, as I mentioned before. So if it's a Cisco switch or if it's an encoder, it will be different parameters and different data pages that we have there. But there is one page which is connector independent and which is always available for any connector. Doesn't matter which one it is, you will always see those kind of general parameters. That's why it's a little bit in a different section as well, not underneath the data. What do we see there? It's a little bit more advanced, you could say maybe, but let's take a look at general parameters. We have things there like a log status, Number of active alarms. Let me take maybe one which is in alarm so that we can see. Yeah. So the general parameters, so we have their number of alarms. We have one alarm and there is one critical alarm. So depending on how many alarms there are, you could say, for instance, if I have 5 majors, I will make it a critical as well, if you would put monitoring on these parameters. So that's a little trick you can do here. Scrolling a little bit down, not too much. One that I definitely wanted to mention here. So the element state is critical. So those are the different general parameters we have. Not to worry about the others too much. Timer base, that's one that I want to mention here. Timer base actually allows you to increase or decrease the polling speeds of a certain element. So if, for instance, I would have a specific element which is being monitored and polled over a satellite link, and I want to slow it down so that it doesn't consume too much bandwidth, I would be able to increase the timer base, or I would need to say decrease the timer base, because the timer base is like a multiplier on your timers. So if you put a higher number in there, so then it goes faster. And if you put a lower number in there than 1, then it basically slows down your system. So that you can play around with that. That allows you to go with faster polling or slower polling. Just be careful. If you do increase the polling, be careful that the device actually supports it, or that the system supports it, because it is easy to just say like, oh, let's go for double speed polling, but it is possible that the system we are monitoring here and we are polling, that the system is impacted by that, because too many requests are coming in to have the data coming back. So sometimes certain systems only have limited CPU power available for the monitoring, or if you are talking to web services, it's possible that we're retrieving big tables with lots of information that also those more Dockers or whatever, or still needing some CPU power to retrieve that information. So if you would just bluntly increase it with 10, you might have impact on your system, depending which kind of system we're talking about, of course. So be careful with that timer base multiplier there, not to overload it. Other things that are in there, actually the properties that, as we have seen before, we've added a property BERT class before, so that's in here. Communication info, so you can see that this one is talking SNMP, it's simulated, so we don't really have the bitrate here on the packets going back and forward to the actual data source. But if we would have the communication, we would effectively see some real data here in the communication. And then we have some more things we don't necessarily need to worry about that on replication and things like that, DCF. So just remember, general parameters are parameters that are independent of the connector. They are always there. They are just part of the DataMiner system, like, for instance, the number of active alarms or the element states that is in there. Okay, so now parameter features. Let's take a look at some of the features we want to further investigate on the parameters. So we saw the different parameters we have, like tables, matrices, and regular parameters with an analog LED bar and things like that. Now let's go for a little bit further features. The first thing is you can just simply double click or right click on a parameter and open it up and drill down into it. So if you want to see more details of a specific parameter, let's go back to our audio, for instance. So you can just double click and then you drill down into that parameter. If you want to go back, you click on up to data display. So you double click, up to data display, you're back. Or you right click and you say open, and then you're also inside that parameter. So you can go inside a parameter, in this case the audio output. We have a number of tab pages there. We're going to come back on the other tab pages later on. We're only going to focus on the first tab page for now. So we see our audio output with the controls again. That's what we already saw. We see also an identifier, the parameter ID here, and we do see the last change that has happened with whom did the last change. So we can see my name because I'm logged in as Bert Vandenbergen and the timestamp when I did that change. You can also see a tooltip text here. I say tooltip text because if I go back and if I actually just move my mouse over the audio output, you will see that there is a tooltip coming up below it that says, oh, that's the main audio level. This parameter represents the gain, etc. If I double click on it, it says the same here. This parameter represents the gain of the analog output stage of the IRT, etc., etc. So this is typically where we can give you some more information what this parameter is about. Typically, we get this from the manual of the device. So if the manual provides us this kind of nice description, we will also make sure that we enrich our connectors with this kind of details. And underneath there, you will find some reports, for instance, how much percentage of the time it has been an alarm. I was just playing around with some alarms, so some alarm states are coming up here, but it has been most of the time into a critical state for now. Okay, yeah, by the way, on the upper right hand side, you can also say, instead of looking at last 24 hours, you can also go for last week. Then it loads a little bit, then you can see it's like 99% of the time in critical. If I go for last 24 hours, it's 95% of the time in critical. So that's some report graphs that are being shown there. The report graph on the left-hand side is not updated yet. It's still needs to be updated. Only now and then it's being updated. This shows the number of alarms, but since the number of alarms were only generated in the last couple of minutes, it's not updated yet. It's the same number of alarms or percentage of time in alarm that you see, those two pie graphs. Okay, so double click to drill down and to see the parameter details. That's the feature we wanted to highlight here. Now, there is something called parameter dependencies. It's a little bit more advanced, but you don't have to worry too much about it. But we do have an example in an SLA, for instance. Let me immediately show you with an SLA like this one. Doesn't really matter which one it is. I have here in the SLA configuration page the possibility, first of all, to specify the type of window. It's not initialized, so let me initialize it first onto an. You can choose between a sliding window or a fixed window. Sliding window is okay, and then I need to specify the time, and then I can say like something like 10. Okay, but if I will say okay, it will ask me, okay, yes, you want to change it to 10, but, well, watch out, you say time, but you didn't specify the unit yet there. So there's a time and a unit. So it says like, okay, this requires you to define the unit, because are you talking about 10 minutes, 10 seconds, 10 days? What are you talking about? So here in the unit, I can specify, indeed, I'm talking about days, week, month, minutes. So just for instance, 10 days, and I can confirm 10 days. Yes, I confirm 10 days. And now I can apply the 10 on there. So that's dependency between two parameters. They need each other to be complete. So if you specify one, the other might be required and pop up as a requirement. There is actually a second parameter dependency. I did show you that you have some drop downs. I have a drop down. Where do I have a drop down? I have a drop down in my audio output level, or my mono output here. It is possible, for instance, that a drop down might have different possible values depending on another one. So maybe if I would change the audio mode to test mode, or maybe if I would have, like, for instance, an encoder which is HD or SD or 4K, it is possible that another drop down will show different possible values depending on the resolution that you chose. So that's also a dependency. It will be less visible because you will change one parameter and you won't really notice that another dropdown has some other values. But if you are missing a certain value in a dropdown, think about the fact that maybe the device is not in that mode to support that specific setting that you're thinking about. So that's another dependency. It just makes sure that you are not able to configure incorrect things on the device. The confirmation window, we've already seen the confirmation window a couple of times. Each time that I change a setting, it pops up like, do you want to change the audio output level to 12? Well, I'm sure of my actions, especially in a demo environment. So don't show this warning again. Always immediately set the value yes. And now next time, if I go back to 6, for instance, and I click go, it immediately just applies the 6 if the device accepts it, because there's a slight delay there. The slight delay is we're sending a command to the device and then we're immediately pulling it back, and it might take a second before the device accepts the new value. But if you see it changing, you know that the actual device reports back that new value. But now I no longer have that confirmation anymore. It just immediately sets my value. There are 2 exceptions, although. The first one is the one that I mentioned before. If there is, for instance, a button like an action button like a reboot, we do have one here on the general reboot, it still comes with a confirmation. It doesn't do it immediately. That is because we defined in the connector that this is a special parameter or a special action here. Always ask for a confirmation, even if the confirmation is disabled. So this one always still pops up because we enforced it. A second one is the matrix. The matrix will also always show you the confirmation. That is because the matrix has that many inputs and outputs with all the little cross points that it's better to always have that confirmation and see the actual number there or the labels to make sure that you're not making a mistake. Okay. So one last validation we do is whenever you do a set, we will make sure that everything is correct according to the specifications of the system that you're talking to. Like in this case, for instance, this one has a step size of 3. You can see that 12, 9, 6, 3, 0. So it's always with 3 it goes up. You cannot make a mistake by using the spin buttons or using the slider. That's the step size of 3 is always applied there. But if I would type in 5, for instance, and I want to apply that, then it will go to the closest value and suggest that as the possible value there. Do you want to continue with 6? Yes, I want to continue with 6, and then it will just apply that 6. So there are certain validations possible in step size, but also, for instance, with text, it's maybe possible that only capitals are allowed or a maximum length is specified. So there are certain things that might be enforced in the connector to make sure that you're not able to send incorrect things to the system you're controlling. Okay, the quick trend quick link feature that's convenient to have in one glance of an eye, the overview of all the parameters that are being trended. We'll talk about trending in the next module, but you can already see it if we go to a certain parameter or a certain the element like we have here in the Microsoft element. So this is a Microsoft element which is monitoring, not sure which server, but we can see that some of the parameters have an kind of an icon next to it, and some of them don't have an icon next to it. So this is the trend icon. So instead of double clicking on the total processor load to go down into the details and the trending, so we'll talk about trending later on in more detail. Instead of double clicking, you can do a single click on that icon. And then it drills down into that trend graph as well. So we're going to go through the details of that trend graph in just a second, and I'm going to talk about all the goodies there. But let's just go back. I just want to mention the icon. You can see that the icon actually shows you different icons. So this one doesn't know anything, doesn't do anything. That's the standard icon, doesn't show anything, just the tooltip says click to drill down. But if it shows an arrow, it means that the analytics actually detected a certain trend. And it actually detects that, for instance, the total threads is stable. So let's take a look at it. And indeed, seems like stable to me. So instead, if I go to the total processor load, seems to be increasing. So apparently that's more a subtle change probably here that it's increasing. Let me go and take a look at the task manager. Because also in a task manager, you can have trend icons there. Here you have them. And that's also quite convenient. If you have lots of them in like an interface table, or in this case, a task manager with processes, you can immediately see which ones are going up or which ones are going down. If I just pick one of those and for instance, an SL protocol, or do we have an SL scripting here? This one is going up in handles. And you can actually see also in the tooltip increasing 32 per hour. If I take a look at that and it's loading the trend graph, you can see actually indeed it's going up. It has this kind of like garbage collection maybe happening every once in a while. And so it's increasing at a certain pace indicated in that tooltip. So that tooltip is also indicating the pace of the increase as well. So it gives you a nice overview. You can immediately see, oh, those are stable, stable, stable. Oh, here we have an increase, here we have a decrease, etc. So that helps you out by quickly identifying certain trends into certain parameters. Okay. So that was about parameter features. Let's take a look at a couple of general features in the element card. The first one is element locking. Element locking is a very simple feature because we are working in a multi-user environment. We were doing some changes on our audio output. So we were changing settings on our IRD or any device you have there. But since we are in a multi-user environment, it is possible that other people are also working on that. So we do have that feature here. If you go into the hamburger menu, which is called lock element. And then it's indicated there as well. So let me just go to my audio output level, or my audio parameters here on my IRD again. So I can click on the hamburger or the cart menu. I call it a hamburger menu. And you can go for lock elements, and it will lock the element by Bert Vandenberger. Now I can of course still do settings on there. I can still go to 12. Note I was just typing 12 and hitting enter, so it can go quite fast maybe. So you can just type 15, hit enter, and then it quickly changes or accepts that value as well. So we do have quite some good keyboard support generally. Anyhow, I can do still settings on there, but somebody else, if somebody else would log in, they would no longer be able to change any settings on there. They would need to contact me, so they would see here, oh, contact online users, and they could give me a message and ask me, for instance, yeah, do you still need this device? Oh yeah, I'm still configuring it. Please don't interfere because I'm doing some maintenance work here. Therefore, I locked it. Now, small trick, if I would go home and I forget about unlocking it, then there is, so I can just right click and unlock it, or also in the menu again, I can unlock it. But if I would forget to unlock it, there is also more like an administrator feature that we have that you can give to admins to do a force unlock. So if I went home, then the super admin guy would still be able to say like, okay, this guy went home and he forgot about it. So we can do a force unlock of that element again. In this case, I will just unlock it again, and then other people can again start doing sets on this element. So nice small feature, but can come in handy with a multi-user environment. The searching. So the searching we've seen in the previous module, the searching in the header bar of DataMiner Cube. We're then searching throughout the system for a specific element or a view or maybe even a connector or something like that. The search here is within the element. We're talking about the element specific things, the parameters that we are talking about here. So within that element we're working in, you do have also a search. So we're not talking about a search at the top of your cube, but this search in the side panel. So if you open up your side panel, so be careful, if you close it, the search is no longer visible. So you need to open up your side panel and then you have that search available there. So what can you do in there? You can quickly search for a parameter, like for instance, audio. It will instantly give me all the audio parameters here, audio mode, audio output, audio subchannel, etc. And also give me an kind of suggestion if I would need to select something like audio output. I can then have that single parameter selected there. So if you'll want to look for a parameter on many different pages, that might be helpful because some of our connectors, some of the data sources have a massive amount of information coming back. So therefore a search can come in handy. Small trick is that you can also search on the severity. So if you start typing severity, the suggestions will be severity. And then you can say, for instance, in alarm, show me all the parameters that are in alarm. Let me show this one with an LED bar again. So this one is critical and this one is a minor alarm. So it immediately shows me all the ones that are in critical of that specific element. So that's a convenient one. There's also another one for trend. So trended, yes, trending, yes, but I don't have any. So let me go to this one with the Microsoft platform has some trending enabled. So let's go for trending, yes. So you can see some physical memory, commit charge, some disk information is being trended, etc., etc. Some task manager stuff and some total processor and total threads, etc. is being trended. So that's also for trending available, the keyword as indicated here for severity. So this is searching within an element. Remember, of course, you do have that search on top of that, but that's more if you're looking for a specific IRD or a specific Cisco switch, you can type in Cisco there and find some switches in there. Okay, so search on a cube level, search within an element. Then we also have multiple sets. We have it on two levels as well. We have multiple set across different elements. But here we are talking about the multiple set within one element. The multiple set across different elements will come up later. So here we're still within one element, the multiple set. So what do we have there? Well, it's actually if you want to configure certain settings on a certain element, and you want to change all the settings, and then you want to do like a salvo of sets towards the device, you can do so by using that multiple set. So how does it work? You change certain different values. You change it to 6, you change it to -9, but you don't click the go buttons yet. And then you click at the bottom on the save all, and then it will give this pop-up that allows you to do all the settings at one. This is the all parameters at one. You can still do a validation of which parameters you want to change and do it one by one by clicking the green check marks there, or remove some of them. Or you can do the set all there. That's the set all at what I want to do there. So let me try that out with our device again with the audio levels there. So let's say that I want to put it a little bit in the green region again. So I'll put it on 6. But in the meantime, I want to put this one also on a green region, which is like -10, for instance. And this one I also want to put maybe on -12 there. And maybe I still want to change this one to off. So you have a number of settings that I want to configure. You can do some frequency changes as well. Well, let me play around with that as well. Some frequencies. And now I can click on the save all here in that yellow bar. So that yellow bar popped up. So I can click on save all. I can verify everything one by one. I can also do it, or I can remove some of them. And if I'm happy with my changes, or if I'm happy with my pending changes, I should say. Then I can click on the set all. And yeah, there was a value that I wanted to, needed to, was not according to the step size that I needed. So this one is going to the -9. I set -10, which is not an accepted value. So then in one go, it changed all the settings. So you configure everything and then you do one go to have everything configured there. All right, so that's the multiple set that is available within one element. It comes up later on across different elements as well. All right, so that was mainly about the elements and the real-time data we have there. There are two more things that I want to add into this video, and that is documents and nodes. A small word on documents, a small word on nodes. The first one is documents. We do have an integrated documents management. So that's one of the pages here in the navigation menu. So here we have documents, and it allows you to store any kind of document into the DataMiner system. So the purpose is, if you are working with a specific element or a specific data source system, that you have all the information available that you should have. Now, there are different sections you can store them in. General documents are documents that are always available. It doesn't matter if I'm working with a Microsoft server, a Cisco switch, or a cloud encoder. It doesn't really matter. It will always show those general documents. For example, training files could be in there, or maybe some conventions, some naming conventions that I've written down that are available there. So they are always available in a general context. Then you also have the Microsoft platform here, because I'm working here with a Microsoft platform. So that's the connector specific documentation. So if I'm working with a Cisco switch, I could have the Cisco documentation there, or the Arista documentation for an Arista switch. So you can put any of the documentation in there, or hyperlinks as well, etc. And you can also have, typically it's on a connector level, but you could also have element specific things added in there. Let me show you that. Let me show you that in a quick demo here. So again, I'm on my demo element here, and let's go to this documents section. So if I go to documents, I will see the general documents that are always available, and the Philips IRD documents that are available of this specific module. If I will go, for instance, to the tables, that's a Cisco switch. So if I go to the documents there, the general documents are the same. They're always the same. They are general. But here we have the Cisco manager that is apparently having no documents yet. So let me go back to the Philips one. So I can easily add new folder in there as well. So I can create subfolders and I can add documents in there. So if I add a new document, let's take a look at that. We do have the possibility to take a document from your local computer. So then you take it and you upload it, like we already have here some examples, like could be an executable, a tool to maybe configure the device with an IP or something like that, or do a firmware upgrade tool. Maybe the firmware upgrades itself could be in there, or some PDF files could be added in there, or maybe some Excel files with some log files that you, or some logging that you added. So any kind of documents you have, you can put it in there. So you can add it for on any Philips device, but you could also add it locally here only for this specific device. So if I have like 100 Cisco switches, if I want to upload the manual of a Cisco switch, I upload it into the general, which is going to be for any Cisco switch or Philips device. But you could also say, well, there's some kind of strange thing happening with this specific Cisco switch, and I have this kind of logging that I have, which is specific for this Cisco switch. Then you can put it locally for this element itself. That's the difference. But by default, we should be good with the protocol or connector level. Next to a document, you can also put in a hyperlink like HTTPS and a website, maybe for support, or the manual is maybe available online somewhere. Or UNC pod. What is a UNC pod? That's like something like server 01, share, etc. And you can have like docs. That's like a UNC pod, a share to a certain file in a share kind of way. That's a UNC pod. Or an email address. You can also have something like support@ yourvendor.com. This kind of email address can be added as well. So that's convenient, because if I'm working with this Philips device, I could have the tools available, the firmware upgrades, the manual. I could have a hyperlink to the website of that specific data source. I could have the docs online somewhere available for that system. I could have maybe an email address for support purposes as well. So all of that documentation can be added for that specific data source for that system. So you have general for any system, connector specific and element specific documents you can add in there. All right, so that's what documents is about, making sure that you have that information conveniently available at any point in time when working with a specific data source. Next to documents, we also have something else. It's called notes. Notes is a very simple, basic version of a document, you could say. It's like a yellow post-it note that you want to put on one specific element. You cannot put it system-wide, or you cannot put it on connector level. It's only on one specific element. So if I'm within my elements, next to documents there you have notes, and this one has 2 nodes or 2 active nodes. There's some maintenance that will be happening, and there's some server info on who's the admin. So it's a yellow post-it. You put it on the machine itself, or you put it on the virtual instance itself with like this is the contact person. There's some maintenance gonna happen. So in case of the maintenance, it is convenient that you can put an automatic expiry date on there. So you can activate expiry by clicking on there and specifying a date. And then the expired notes will disappear by default. This is an expired one. So how can you do that? You can, let me show you. So next to the documents, you can go to notes. It's very low entry, because there's no save, there's no nothing, no edit buttons. Just you click on it and you start editing. Admin, the admin of the owner, forgot to type, is Bert VDB. So for instance, you can type anything in there, but you can just type whatever you want as contact details. Is then my email is the short version is just bert@skyline.be or bert.vandenberg. So you can activate the expiry if you want to do that. So you don't need to save this. It's still there. If I would close everything down, I go back, the note would still be there. It's indicated with 1 as well. So I don't need to save or do anything. And you can just easily remove it again by clicking on the cross sign, and it's gone again. Very easy, very simple. And remember, this is on this specific element only. You don't have something like general. So it's only on one element you can post a note, not on all the elements of, for instance, the Arista switches. That's not possible. It's only on one switch you can put a post-it. You cannot put one post-it on 1,000 switches. That's how simple it is in reality with a post-it as well. All right, so that were 2 couple of extras, you could say, that we've shown here. So we've mainly talked about the elements with the performance or the real-time data there, with the pages, and the pages were organized according to the connector, with showing all the data coming back from the element in an organized manner. We took a look at the different parameters we have, the tables as well, matrices, some of the features we can drill down into a parameter. We'll take a closer look at that in the next one, and then some more features and goodies, wrapping it up with the documents and the notes. I hope you learned a lot of things in this session. and see you in the next one.